Biden is going after Texas, saying that they must remove fortifications from their border. They put wire, they put things to keep people out. Biden saying you got to take that down to let people come in illegally, which is just crazy. And I remarked that if the Constitution was originally understood to mean that a state could not protect itself against an invasion, that the federal government could force a state to allow an invasion, the Constitution would have never been ratified in the first place. Texas would have never joined the Union when it did. And if you look at Federalist 46, which Daniel Horowitz pointed out, James Madison talks about situations where federal encroachment can be mitigated by state action. So you have Texas here that's holding its ground. They have every right to fortify the border vis-a-vis an invasion, and that's Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution. So they're in the right. You also have a situation where liberal jurisdictions over many, many years have been sanctuary jurisdictions against enforcing federal immigration law. So you'll have somebody who's a criminal alien, they will not be given over to ICE, and they will deliberately act to frustrate the laws on the books, and somehow that's viewed as okay. You have Texas, who's acting to enforce the laws on the books, to ensure that they have a secure state and that we have a secure country. So all of this is just nonsense what Biden's doing. Texas has every right to stand its ground. We've in Florida, we've been sending people to help for many years now, because we understand it's not just a Texas issue, it's ultimately an American issue. And if we don't have sovereignty in this country, then we're not going to be a country anymore. So they have every right to hold their ground, to stay the course, and Florida will continue to be there helping out every step of the way.
We will continue to deploy the razor wire. I like how the media is reacting to this in shock, awe, and dismay. I would react as well if it wasn't for Biden, who also neglected to follow an order from the Supreme Court of the United States regarding student debt. Like, if you set the precedent, right, if you become the cog in machine, don't complain about the smell of oil. If you're going to make the Supreme Court into an advisory board, why can't your political opponents do the same? Now, this is very interesting, right? Because it places Joe Biden in a very difficult position, especially before the election. So right now, no matter what he does, is going to be good. Like he is in a lose-lose situation. If he does nothing, he will appear weak. He will appear, it's like, well, you know, he already tried suing Texas, and the Supreme Court is giving him right, and it's like, yeah, well, of course, I mean, the federal government is supposed to enforce the law regarding border security. So if he does nothing, then he appears weak. But if he does do something, then it looks like, well, it's the feds against the state rights, against Texas. And this is before the election, right? So, like, if you do that, then what you're going to do is you're energizing the right-wingers. Because, unfortunately, this is a left-wing versus right-wing situation. Like, the Democrats are renowned, famously so, for wanting mass uncontrolled immigration. So they will view it as a divide across political lines, and they will be like, well, the feds, you know, the reason that they want to control the border is because they want people in, right? Like, if it was the opposite, then people wouldn't side with Texas. Like, if Texas was like, okay, well, we want to control the border because we want as many immigrants to come in, so we get, I don't know, like more electoral votes or something. If that was the case, then yeah, like people would be like, of course the federal government needs to stop that, right? But no, this seems to be a case that's the opposite. You now have like many other governors from different southern states siding with Texas. And Texas itself, like the governor Greg Abbott, has said something that would have got you banned on social media before Elon Musk took over. So if before you'd have said that the refugee crisis is an invasion, that was hate speech. But now it's not only that Greg Abbott is saying this, he is declaring it. Legally so, right? So he declared that according to the Constitution, Each the farmers included both Article 4, which promises that the federal government shall protect each state against invasion, and that the state's sovereign interest in protecting their borders. The failure of the Biden administration to fulfill the duty imposed by Article 4 has triggered Article 110, Clause 3, which reserves to this state the right to self-defense. For this reason, I have already declared an invasion under Article 1 and 10 to invoke that Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land and supersedes any federal statute that says the contrary. The Texas National Guard and the Texas Department of Public Safety and other Texas personnel are acting on that authority as well as state law to secure the Texas border. In other words, what he is saying is the same argument that was made during COVID. So like normally you have a right to have a business, yeah? But like during the pandemic, because of such overwhelming calamity and disaster, the government gets to decide that your business is non-essential, so they get to shut you down because it's an emergency. So in the case of Texas, he's basically saying that yes, the federal government does indeed, as the Supreme Court says, has the right to cut the wire and to defend the border. But in an emergency situation, which I now have declared, we get to do that, right? And also, don't let the press gaslight, because I noticed that they're saying that Texan doesn't have the right to put barbed wire. No, the Supreme Court gave the right to the feds to cut the barbed wire. But it doesn't say that Texas can't put more. So you do have like this ridiculous situation, obviously, like this childish thing where like one group cuts the wire, the other group puts more. Still, what is interesting is that I heard people from Texas chanting "Arrest the Fed." And personally, what I think will happen, I don't think like Greg Abbott can get arrested. I don't think like the Fed can actually do anything against it, especially not before an election. I think they're going to try to do what the European Union is doing and have sanctions. Like we may see sanctions against Texas, withholding federal funding, that type of thing. I do expect we're going to see some of that. The situation is indeed escalating, and right now the ball is in Biden's court. Which, as I said before, he doesn't seem to have any good plays out of this. This is usually what the left is doing, by the way. Like, the left likes to put their opponents in an unwinnable situation, where regardless of what you do, you end up as losing. But in this particular case, no, it seems that Greg Abbott has managed to put the Biden administration in a losing position. And again, like at this point, it's very difficult to gaslight that the migration isn't coordinated. I mean, when you see millions of people who come from half across the world away, it's like, well, where do they have money for it? Like I would find it difficult to go to America right now. I wouldn't have the money to do it, but for some reason, right? Like you have all these people that have the means and the finances. And you're telling me that the United States can figure out which person was partaking into the riot next to the Capitol by looking at the electronical data they have, and that they have the NSA and they have the CIA, but for some reason they can't figure out who's funding all of these NGOs that are pushing people up their border? That is interesting, isn't it? Right? They can find some twat that says something on Discord and they get immediately into trouble, but they can't find... come on. Let me know what you guys think, though, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.